My name is Mike Rohde, and my wife Susan and I have been coming to Intercessor with our family for about 26 years. As I was reflecting on what I was going to say today, I realized that we all have these moments in time which kind of define our life. And of course, there's way too many of them to talk about all of them, but I'm going to mention a few. When my mother was a young woman, she entered into the convent, and if she hadn't gotten really sick, she wouldn't have been in a position where she had to leave, in which case she was able to meet my father, and I wouldn't even be here. I could talk about being raised as a Catholic, being an altar boy, going to 8 years of Catholic grammar school and 4 years of Catholic high school. When I got out of high school, I pretty much said goodbye to church life and started searching. Not quite sure even what I was searching for, but just searching. I tried meditation, I tried drugs and alcohol. As a matter of fact, I started drinking at the age of, I guess, 17 in my senior year of high school. Unfortunately, that lasted for somewhere around 15 to 20 years. I experimented with various different drugs and all. Now remember, it was the 70s. Things were a little bit different then. Eventually, I was released from the addiction of alcohol and various drugs. But unfortunately, it didn't happen until my early years as a parent. Before meeting Susan, I lived for a time in Pennsylvania at my parents' summer home, just me and my rabbit Harry. After that, I moved to New Jersey to a crafts village there where I learned woodworking and learned how much of a passion I had for woodworking and construction and building things. Then after that, one of my friends from there and I moved down to Kentucky, just outside of Lexington, and we rented a house on 80 acres for $80 a month, believe it or not. And it didn't have indoor plumbing, but it did have a pump outside with a well, and it did have an outhouse, so that was important. After I left Kentucky, I moved back to New York and started my construction business, which to this day consists mostly of residential work and residential renovations. I did have a season where we built some brand new houses, but most of the time it's been renovations. I had always wanted to settle down and have a family once I met the right girl. But during this time I had a variety of different relationships with different young ladies that didn't quite work out because I had not yet met my true love. One day while I was at my parents' house and they were away, the phone rang, and I found out that my father had had a heart attack and he was gone. Unfortunately, I was still rebellious at this particular point in time, and I didn't quite have the relationship with him that I would have liked. Having 3 children myself, I certainly didn't want to have that same issue with my kids. So I work extra hard on having a good relationship with my children, which exists to this day. One day I was at a roller skating party in Levittown with some friends of mine, and I met Susan. Now that's a story in itself, and she should be the one to tell you that one. I'm not going to say that now. Not too long after that, we bought a house and moved in together, and 2 years to the day after my father passed away, we got married. As of the date of this recording, that's 40 years, 30 weeks, and 3 days. Not that I'm counting. So not too long after that, we started to have children. Our first son, Tyler, was born. And then almost 3 years exactly to the day, our son Spencer was born. Now many of you here know Spencer and his beautiful wife Selena. And then 11 years to the day after we met, we had our beautiful little girl, Mackenzie May. The kids are all grown now, and Tyler has settled out in Nevada near Las Vegas. Spencer, of course, is still local, and Mackenzie, who's been a nurse for about 6 years, lives upstate near Middletown. With 3 young kids, we realized at some point that we needed to find a church. Susan used to take them when they were young. She'd always take them on Sunday, and they enjoyed that. But I took Sunday for myself because I worked all week, and that was my day to go for a run, to mow the lawn, to do work on my estimates, etc., etc. A little selfish, I know, but that's where I was at the time. One Sunday morning at a business conference, there was a Sunday service with an altar call, and Susan and I both went forward that day to accept Jesus as our Savior. After that weekend, things were a little bit different. And even though we had lots of struggles, we kind of knew deep down inside that things were going to be okay. One day, a friend of mine, Scott Caesar, said to me, "Did you know that you can have a personal relationship with the creator of the universe?" That totally blew my mind. I had never heard such a thing growing up in the Catholic Church. And of course, those previous years I had been away from the church. So it was just something that I had never even thought that I could actually talk to God. Eventually, after a while of searching, Susan and I found Intercessor. We've made it a home ever since. You know, it's funny. I used to be the guy that would be holding all these packages and then open the door with my knee, and somebody'd come along and say, "Hey, can I help you?" And I'd say, "No, I got it. Over the years, I learned how to accept help, and I even learned how to say thank you. More and more over the years, I realized that people are important, way more important than business or stuff. And that's been a theme over the years in our life. I started to realize some of the gifts that God had given me. The gifts of serving, the gift of helping. I'm a really good gap filler. I also, around this time, I started to participate in a men's discipleship network, which is a men's ministry based in Farmingdale. There I've used some of these gifts for constructing things and video editing and all sorts of things. And of course, we became very active here at Intercessor. Susan has been the office manager for the last 12 or so years, and I've been involved in various projects over the years. Last summer, Susan and I had the opportunity to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary by going on a 4-day, 95-mile bike ride through the hills of Acadia National Park in Maine. It was beautiful, and we met a lot of wonderful people from all over the country, actually. One lady even came from Alaska. At any rate, Susan loves to go biking, so I was looking for something special to celebrate our anniversary, and she loved it. It was difficult, but she loved it. What happened next is I had a pretty serious moment in time. I ended up waking up one day feeling really, really crappy. I had a horrible night's sleep, and I just felt horrible. When I got up in the morning, thankfully, Susan talked me into going to urgent care to get checked out. I said, okay. I was all dressed and ready to go to work after urgent care, but bottom line is I went. And when I went there, the young doctor didn't like what she saw. She didn't like the heart rate that I had. I had a high elevated heart rate. She didn't like what she saw in the EKG. And she looked at me as if she was talking to her own father, and she said, "You need to go to the hospital right now." Now, of course, I did what every guy would do, is I called up Susan and I said, "Do you think I should go?" Yes, she said yes. Well, thankfully, she said yes. So a short ambulance ride later, I was at the hospital. And after a couple of hours of various IV drugs to try and lower my heart rate, the doctor decided that I was going to need a procedure. So they were going to do that in the beginning of the week. So he sent me over to Manhasset to the better equipped hospital. After an uneventful weekend, Monday morning came around, and I don't have any memory of this, but they told me that they did a cardioversion, which is the electric shock that you see, on TV and in the movies. And it had some results, but it didn't get my heart down to exactly where they wanted it to. So they were also planning on perhaps doing what they call an ablation, which is where they go in somehow and they cauterize the end of the nerve that's causing the misfire. Since the cardioversion didn't work, the next step that what they did was they gave me a very serious drug, which was administered in a few different doses through IV and had to be monitored regularly because it could have potential serious side effects. And of course it did. I was told that they found me in the bathroom on the floor. I had collapsed. My heart had stopped. I had a big gash under my lip here, and apparently I fell and hit the toilet. Thankfully, my teeth didn't get knocked out, and all sorts of other things that could have happened, so I'm very grateful for that. But it turns out that they had to bring me back. They used CPR. They did compressions. They brought me back, and thankfully I was on the same floor as the cardiac ICU. So each time they got my heart started, it didn't last too long, apparently, and it stopped again. What happened is this happened approximately 6 to 8 times over the next 24 minutes. This is what I was told. During that time, because of lack of oxygen going to my spine, I had what they call an ischemic attack. The essence of this just means basically I had nerve damage, and it manifested in my right leg being numb from the hip down and my left leg being numb from the knee down, which of course didn't make it easy to do anything, let alone stand or walk. During this time, I was living in the twilight zone, and I had very, very vivid visions, although I had no sense of time, no sense of any reality whatsoever. I found out later that I was on this life support for about 9 days. And when I came to, for lack of a better word, things were very different, very different. Since I was in the hospital for 5 to 6 weeks, and my family all pulled together at that time frame, and everybody was helping to support Susan. Susan and the rest of them were all visiting daily. I was focusing mostly on just being alive and dealing with a lot of pain and dealing with a lot of discomfort. And it is true that when you're so impacted with such pain and your whole body is I don't want to say on fire, but it was really, really, really uncomfortable during that whole time. I didn't even feel like I could pray or talk to God. So that was a challenge, and it took me a couple of weeks before I could actually start talking to God again, which of course is the most important part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring Susan on so that she can help guide us through what her perspective and her experience was during this time frame.
I recently heard an analogy that is true for me, that reading from the Bible and the Word of the Lord is like opening a window. And it gives you, as you open that window, it gives you a plan for your life and how to live your life. And the more that you open that window, the more that plan will be revealed to you, and that you can get to the point where you have opened the window enough that it's the fresh air of the Word of the Lord is in the room so much it just dissipates the stale air that was there before. And I feel like that's true for me, that I have grown in my faith as I went along, and just slowly and steadily grown in my faith. And there were times where my faith was terribly tested. So my window may not be fully open right now. I still have a ways to go, but there have been a few giant moments where that window was just thrown open wide, and God made it very clear to me that He was in control, and I was just along for the ride. And one of those moments, of course, was July 16th, when this all started to happen. Let me just give you a little backstory, though, on Mike and I. He, in case you didn't know, is the laid-back one, and I'm the one who's a little nutty. But I've always said, the whole time we're married, that he is the strongest person that I know, and that's very true, and it's true in so many ways. It's true spiritually and physically, emotionally, and even health-wise. So he's a vegetarian, has been for 50 years. He's rarely sick, he eats healthy, takes vitamins, always yells at me for not. And my whole married life, he's been the rock of our family, always willing to do whatever it takes to get done whatever we need to get done. But he's also very kind and super considerate. So he's the kind of husband that fills my car up with gas every time that I need it. So that I don't have to, and he's been doing that for 40 years. That morning when he agreed to go to urgent care, I knew that something was wrong, because he was agreeing to go. So I knew that he kind of felt that there was something that was off. But I certainly didn't expect, what happened, close to what happened. So for the first 3 days that he was there in the hospital, I just really expected he was going to come home, that, they were going to get it under control and he would come home. And until I got the call on that Tuesday morning, when the doctor who was from the hospital in Plainview, he called me to let me know that there was an incident with Michael's heart, and that he would not be in the room. He would be in the ICU on the same floor, and that I was to go see him there. I started to panic a little, but not really a lot, but I just, really quickly got all my stuff together. In the meantime, they had called Mackenzie upstate and let her know. And she was on her way down, on her long 2-hour drive down. And then before I can even walk out of the house, the doctor called me back again, and he said that there has been a more serious heart incident, and his heart stopped, and they had to do CPR for 24 minutes, but they got it going again. So I instantly started to really panic now, and I said, is he going to be okay? And he said, he's alive. And that was really, it was heart-wrenching for me. My heart just dropped. And I knew, I had to get there as quickly as I can. So The doctor then got scared, and he actually called Mackenzie and said, "Could you get your mother a ride there?" And she said, no, she can't. She's already on the road. I know her. And I was, and I drove as quickly as I possibly could to get there. And when I was on the way, I called Janine, my sister-in-law, and asked her to please call Father Joe and let him know. And when I got there, shortly after I got there, Father Joe was already there. So I was so thankful for that I had that support from him. And the first time that I went in and saw him that day, it was just very surreal, because here's the strongest person I know, with all of these tubes coming in and out of him, with IVs in every single vein that you could find, and then this big giant machine drawing his blood out and putting it back in. And he was, of course, completely sedated. So, that was really, really difficult. It was very stressful. And I would wait for those moments when they would take down his sedation a little, and I can actually see him. They would, every once in a while, they would take it down, so that they can get him to do some things, like move his hand, and they would give him commands to do, and he would have to do those. And so I would wait for those times, and so I can look in his face and say, "Hi, Mike, we're here," and then he would go right back out again. So I don't even think you remember any of that. There were constant scares in the days to come. Ups and downs the whole time. But there was also moments of hope. Hearing the doctors come in and talk about him to other doctors and say, as though this is the miracle man here, it's a miracle that he's alive. And I heard that word miracle many times from doctors. So that was very hopeful. The third day that he was on life support, his heart actually started to pump on its own. And that was such a good sign. We were so relieved by that. That same day that we heard his heart was pumping again, they had sent in a heart transplant team to speak to us, to have signed papers so that they can go ahead with testing to see if he was a candidate for a heart transplant. And when they came in and asked me that, I looked at Mackenzie and I said, "No, his heart's going to be okay. We're not going to do that. I can't do that. I need to talk to Mike about that." And she said, "No, Mom," in her best nurse voice. And I have to tell you, she was the strongest, most wonderful nurse ever the whole time. She said to me, "No, Mom, it's just a plan B. We're on plan A still, but we have to prepare for plan B in case A doesn't work out." And so I went ahead and signed for it. But it really threw me. I was just so overwhelmed after that. I was just so sad that was even a consideration, that I went home that night driving, yelling to God, "Please, please save my husband." And when I got home, Spencer was at my house, and he said to me, "Can we pray?" And we prayed together. And he said, "Why are you crying? I know that Dad is going to be healed." He said, "Do you believe that?" And I said, "Yes, I do, but I'm scared." So after he left and I was praying by myself in my room that night, I really heard from the Lord that to not doubt him, that he will be healed. And that when I was scared by something that was told to me by the doctors, or something that I saw, go wrong with the machines and that kind of stuff, that I was to say, "Satan, you are a liar." So I screamed that over and over in my room. I felt so much better by that. I felt that I could handle it. And the next day, when the heart transplant team came in again for more questions and tests and everything, the whole time they talked, I just screamed inside of my head, "Satan, you're a liar. Satan, you're a liar." I just kept on repeating it. It was my mantra then. But it really, really helped me, and I was so thankful to God that I was given that word. Every day his heart got stronger and stronger in that time that he was on the ECMO machine, to the point where they went in the operating room and removed it. They also reduced all his sedation and took the breathing tube out. So for the very first time in 11 days, I got to actually talk to him, and where he talked back to me, but it was in a very scratchy voice, very low, almost a whisper. So we had to get right up to him to hear what he was saying. But it was a blessing for sure. I am eternally grateful to God for the big giant miracle that he performed for us by saving Michael and giving me back my husband.
But I'm also really, really thankful to God for his gracious mercy and giving me the words that I needed to take away my fears and to increase my faith. And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so thankful for him.
So I got to tell you, we had some incredible support from our family, our friends, our whole family pulled together. The kids were there all the time for Susan, Mackenzie especially, because she was able to talk to the doctors in a way that they would respect her because she's a nurse. So a lot of times doctors will talk to lay people with tempered language. So that really made a huge difference.
Yes.
We got cards, we got messages, we got people gave money. It was all sorts of stuff.
And prayers constantly.
Lots of prayers. Spencer did an incredible job with the different groups of circle of friends, I guess, for lack of a better word, that he kept in touch with. And then when I finally got home, it was pretty slow for a while and very painful. It's still, I'm still dealing with that, but it's part of the deal. Susan and I often, when we were sitting at home, we might be watching TV or something like that, and I'd say, hey, give me the remote, and she'd say, who died and made you boss? And I'd say, I did. That was kind of a running joke for a little while, but the bottom line is both of us were just incredibly grateful, and we might burst out into tears just because of that on occasion. So it has been a long road. It's actually going to be 9 months this weekend, I think. Still having difficulty with various things, although lots of people say I look better, and that's good. I appreciate that. And of course, I'm still waiting for the numbness to go away, although it is very, very slowly dissipating. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but the neurologist did say at some point he expects a complete healing, so that's exciting.
Yes.
So what the cross means to me is really quite simple. It represents the incredible sacrifice that God and his son Jesus made for us all, and that we don't deserve it. And that without his help, we can't accomplish very much in life. Yet with his help, we can have an incredible life and a blessed life.
Yes.
A life enriching lives of others, living with others, and makes all the difference to me. Thanks.